So you're thinking about running, but not sure how to take the first step. My name is Brian Patterson, and I'm here to help. Welcome to Brian's Run Pod. Welcome back to Brian's Run Pod, and I'm your host Brian Patterson, and today we're diving into the second part of our enlightening conversation with the incredible Janis Isaman. In our last episode, we touched on her journey from injury to becoming a body movement specialist. So what if your understanding of your body's mechanics and incorporating practices like yoga and Pilates could revolutionize your fitness routine? Janis will share the benefits of using Pilates machines to mirror the everyday movements, helping us to identify imbalances and emphasizing the significant role of core strength, flexibility, and balanced muscle engagement. We explore therapeutic exercises such as yin yoga and body rolling that not only alleviate pain but also enhance overall performance, guiding you towards more effective and pain-free fitness journey. This episode is packed with insights on preventing running injuries and promoting body sustainability. We discuss how techniques like yoga and self-massage with balls can enhance joint health and prevent injuries, especially for us runners. With a special focus on the body's lower half, feet, ankles, knees and hips, Janis explains the importance of early intervention to avoid long-term issues. Plus, we dive into the emotional aspects of running and the necessity of having multiple outlets for emotional processing. It was a fantastic episode, and maybe in the future we'll get Janis on a future episode of Brian's Run Pod. But all I can say, it was great talking to her all the way from Calgary in Canada, and I hope you really enjoy this episode as much as I did. On that is, let's say, supposing I come to you, let's say, or someone comes to you who's used to working at a high intensity, always been running, that kind of thing. And then you're going into, let's say, either yoga or Pilates, which are kind of, they're taking the temperature down.
They are.
And, and are you having to, or have you had to, convince people that although, we're not getting our heart rate up to 160 billion beats per minute, you're trying to you're taking it down, but it's doing as much benefit for you. How do you kind of like approach?
Ooh, I love this question. So the way that I actually work, when people come in to see me, we never start with something that is going to look or feel like a workout. So I always talk to people on the phone before they start with me because I need them to know that. So the first 2 sessions, probably even longer, especially for somebody who's really fit, who's really athletic, who's used to that feeling of pushing or burning, it's going to be a dramatic difference. But what I will do is I will have somebody on the Pilates machine, and we start with, I don't know, I think there's 5 or 6 exercises. They lay down and start, and then I have them start telling me what they feel. I have them start telling me where they feel it. And then I give them verbally what I'm noticing about their body. Oh, I noticed that your left leg works a little bit more. Okay. Do you agree? And they say yes. And then they start to realize that. So the Pilates, I love a Pilates machine because it mirrors a lot of the ways that we move through the world, but it's not something that most people have ever done. So if I put you on your back on a Pilates machine doing what is a squat, you probably wouldn't recognize it as a squat. Right. Or there's another movement where you take your leg and you extend it backwards. That mirrors what your running gait would look like. So as soon as we kind of start talking about, oh, I see that your right side works a little bit more than your left side. Oh, I see that your leg doesn't actually move behind your body and your glutes not engaging. Then all of a sudden, it's actually really easy for people to make that jump to, oh yeah, I'm struggling with this, or my back hurts when I do that, or whatever it is. They'll start revealing the things that they actually know are problematic. they'll start sharing what they're feeling and sharing all of this. And then all of a sudden that idea of it has to be high intensity, it has to be 2 hours long, we have to do this, we have to do that, all out the window, because suddenly they're very, very, very invested in mechanics, how they're transferring load, core strength, flexibility, balance from side to side. And a lot of those things are not things that most people have ever really been taught. They've never thought about them. Yeah. They're just trying to get through to the next thing and check I can't speak for everybody who's listening, but I certainly did. I was like, oh, we got
I was the same. Yeah. But do they, do they, suddenly realize, the next day they wake up and I thought, well, I can, yeah.
Yeah. Good question. So what we do after kind of that process that I just shared was then I will assign what I put in the box of a therapeutic. So that's going to be a yin yoga, a Yamuna body rolling, a critical alignment therapy, something like that, where it's more in the category of a body work exercise. And then we go back and do that Pilates exercise again. And I don't need to convince anybody of anything after that, because suddenly pain is gone. The joints are more open. The whatever problem we kind of identified is gone. And they realized there was kind of all of this tightness and all of this dysfunction in the body that can, within a 5-minute period, we can move forward from that. And suddenly running is easier. It's less painful. I'm speaking just about runners. Yeah. And a huge part of that, again, that is that trauma piece where we're linking, what do you feel? Where do you feel it? What do you feel? Where do you feel it? Over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because that way the person, I don't have to ever tell people to kind of repeat it at home. They want to, but B, they're leaving with that knowledge that they can do on their own. So, it doesn't happen in an hour, but if you work with me for 2 months, I guarantee that you can do this yourself. It is not, it's practice and it's reinforcement and it's developing a language and noticing things. But then you can kind of tailor your own running program, and you can, when things don't feel right, because we've worked through that.
Because you kind of answered my question, my next question, and maybe it's something. I have a question about Pilates or in general. Is that if someone comes to you and then you're doing a certain exercise, it's, am I feeling the right thing, sort of thing, or not knowing if I'm feeling the right thing, but you're kind of just reinforcing that to make sure. But you're also looking, and you can see with your experience, can see that, one side's stronger than the other or whatever,
That's right. I know even when I was, I think I was doing this work already. Yes, I was. I remember, and I actually do recommend this for runners, is do an exercise where for one block, you really tune into, are you using your legs equally from side to side? I don't. So I would notice my right leg will dominate and my right glute will help push me forward. I have a lazy left side of my bum. Yeah. I just do.
Yeah.
So then I would try to, for a block, even those out. And then it would get kind of mentally and physically exhausting. And then I would let it go. And then I would repeat that. And it really helped kind of balance my gait out. So the benefit in having someone like myself is we can really talk through that. But I definitely, absolutely think that there are things that you can do without me that are there, because the things that I'm teaching, I want to keep them not simple for people. It's like, okay, which side of your body are you using more? Is it at your foot? Is it at your knee? Is it at your hip? And can you consciously adapt and change it? Now, where you do need to see someone like myself is if you know that something's wrong and you can identify where it is, but you can't change it, right, then you need kind of some interventions in terms of,
for instance, I mean, what give an example. What could that be?
So I'll give you actually that very same example. So I knew that my left glute wasn't powering me forward. So anybody who runs can appreciate that when only one glute is pressing you forward, your gait is off. So I have a lot of clients who can actually identify that. Maybe they have sciatica or they have shin splints, but then it's not really a brain issue. So it's not as simple as saying, okay, left glute, let's do this. So they probably need a yoga program or they need a Yamuna body rolling program. Those things are accessible. And actually, if there was one kind of blanket easy thing, it depends on where people are listening from. But I would invest in a set of Yamuna balls and I would go find a Yamuna body rolling instructor. It's going to keep your shins, your hips, your knees, everything kind of pain-free and able to go. But if you don't know where one is or who that is or what that is.
Could you just briefly explain what it is? So
it's a technique that it's actually based in New York City. It is like, it goes back a long ways that this is the root, but it's been around for 40 something years. And the inventor's name is Yamuna. She's rooted in yoga. So if you think about the benefits of yoga, where you get that extension of your joint and you decompress and lengthen your joint and you open up the space, that's the idea, but it uses balls. So it's a technique that you can do yourself, where you take the ball from where the muscle inserts to where the muscle originates, or the other way around. You go origin to insertion. But basically, it's very anatomically based. I give that to all my runners for their hips and their glutes. But to link it back to your question, we can't correct everything out of our brain. The reason that I added some of these other techniques to my teachings is because it might take 2, 3, 4 months with Pilates to correct it. I can get somebody down on a ball doing this, and in 5 minutes, it's changed because we've opened up the space in their joint. Right. So sometimes we can't really get our brain to say, okay, let's just move through the glute, because if your joint is stuck, you need help releasing that. Yeah. So that could be a massage therapist. That could be a different kind of body worker. It could be a rolfer, but you might need help with something like that. But I think, especially as we age and especially as we put mileage on, we as runners really need to invest time, effort, and knowledge into that body sustainability piece. Otherwise, we get injured.
Yeah. I mean, before we finish, I think we've got about 10 minutes or so, but I mean, I know it's very difficult because, you know, you're basing it on the individual, but are there any sort of generic tips, taking into account, that the type of experience and knowledge that you have that you can give to the audience and say, it's not just about the running, and, here there are certain principles, to help be injury free, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, the generic part is, number one, all runners really need to be conscious of what's happening basically from our waist down. And that's going to sound obvious, but we really need to check in with our knees, ankles, feet, shins, hips. And that covers a huge swath of your body. I'm aware of that. But a heel strike is a minimum of about 300 pounds. So, and there's not really even shoes that can help us avoid that. So that's tremendous force going up and down your leg. And it leaves a lot of room, especially the more mileage we put on. It leaves room for slight shifts in those biomechanics to lead to injury. So I think, honestly, on a daily basis, we need to really get into a check-in with, how do my feet feel? How do my ankles feel? How do my knees feel? How do my hips feel?
Okay.
Because at the very first sign of this doesn't feel good, that's when we need that intervention, if we're not already doing it. So I'm a big fan of preventative intervention, but let's say you ignore all of that idea.
Yeah.
You still need to do those check-ins, whether you're doing preventative or not, because as I mentioned already, I get people in who, it's 2 years later, and then we've got some really entrenched patterns. And it's because what most of us will do, most of us can remember being younger than we were now, where things spontaneously went away. They just fixed themselves.
Yes.
And that isn't necessarily your station in life at the moment, but most people will just be like, okay, let's just wait for it to pass.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so
I'm
I would
guilty of that.
say if you, right. And,
Yeah.
and most of us are, and it's partly because we don't really know what we should be doing anyways. Like if we knew that, okay, if I just do some yoga today, or I just go get a massage today, it would help. We probably would do that. But I really feel like that's probably my best tip is do an honest check-in of those body parts, because a small problem is actually relatively easy to fix. And once it's entrenched, it's a big problem, and it takes even more of the time and the patience that you spoke of earlier to actually unwind all of that. Mm. I think as well, runners tend to be really high intensity people. We tend to be those type A people that want that accomplishment. We want to check the box. We want to achieve. Those are all great things, but we really have to watch that component of ourselves as well. And when I say that, adding in those body sustainability pieces is broad advice for everybody. I don't think that there's a single runner who shouldn't also have some sort of practice, be it yoga, Pilates, regular massages, whatever it is. And it really links to the first point that I made. But I think wrapping our head around that achievement being as important as the running or the miles or the races or the times or the whatever else it is that we're tracking, start to track how much care you're giving your body, because especially as we age and especially as we put mileage on, that will keep everything kind of balanced. And then I also would say that emotional piece is a big one, because again, many of us I started running to process my emotions and to avoid my emotions and time to think and time to listen to music and all of that. That stuff is all good, but we also
and
have
the
to make sure.
And the endorphins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All of it's great. I mean, yay for all of that. But we also have to watch that that's not our only kind of emotional processing piece, that's not the only way that we can anchor ourselves in that, because if we lose it due to an injury, that's not good. But also, I have encountered many people, and I was one of these people that was the only way I had to get rid of anger, aggression, sadness, all of it. Yeah. And I think my body would have been better off to do 25% less and to have another kind of emotional processing capacity in my life.
Yeah, doing something like Pilates or yoga or something like that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And I recognize how hard it would have been to convince me to do it before that injury. So I realize that when I say that, many runners are going to be like, no, that's not happening. But if all I've done is just plant a seed to consider that, then I consider that a positive thing. So, if it could be a creative outlet, it could be another form of athleticism. I really like cycling as cross training. That can give kind of that same component. Yeah. And I think the two biggest areas of injuries I see in runners are shin splints and glute problems. Yeah. And the glute problems can manifest as knee problems. So just make sure that you're really tending to those areas in particular, because they can kind of feel like they sneak up on you. And that's where, again, if you're going to take part of this advice and be like, okay, I'll do 5 minutes, do a glute stretch. Yeah. You can Google what a figure 4 stretch is. That's a good one. Yeah. Shins are a little bit harder to stretch, but you can look something up on the internet. And just what I see a lot of is runners doing 22 seconds. So I would say my own experience with that was I decided to do 7 minutes. And I actually had a yoga trainer who laughed at me. He's like, what's the point in that? But it changed things for me. So I think 30 seconds before and after a run is not adequate for most of us.
Right.
So decide if it's 7 minutes, 14 minutes, 22 minutes, and then kind of put that on your training plan as much as you put in your long runs.
I don't mind me asking. I'm just getting over a sort of what they call policeman's heel, plantar, whatever.
Okay. Yeah. The plantar fasciitis.
What advice, I mean, sort of like apart from rolling on a golf ball or, and the ice and the ice. I mean, is there anything you'd recommend for that?
So again, I would actually dip into my Yamuna body rolling toolkit. There is actually a foot device that's specifically for that. I've used that with great success for the last 17 years with clients. It takes away most, if not all of it. The other piece with plantar fasciitis, actually, I will say this about all injury. The tricky thing with our body is that most of the time when we have injury, that's not the beginning, middle, and end of the problem. So a plantar fasciitis also is a problem of the foot, but it also is a problem of higher up the body. So all the way up to the hip. So for you,
I agree. Yeah.
roll out your foot. Yes. But also there probably should be a bit of an investigation of what's going on with your hip strength, your shins, your calves, your hamstrings, all of that. So, and when I say hips, you have 22 muscles that cross your hips. So that's a pretty wide swath of your body to kind of start investigating. But I would say generally, this is a gross oversimplification, but anything that's happening from your waist down, if you have an injury, there's a high chance that whatever's happening, if you feel an injury on one side, high chance that your other side is just as bad, if not worse. That always surprises people. So if we feel that on the left side, once I start digging in to the right side on people, they're always shocked that it's usually just as bad, if not worse. The second thing is there's nothing ever in isolation. So whatever is happening, if you're from the waist down, probably the whole chunk of your legs needs to be kind of worked over again with your yoga, your Pilates, your massage, whatever it is that you've decided to do. Runners don't tend to get a ton of injuries from the waist up, but your back is usually your abs. Quite often the root cause, if you will, in quotations, is not where you think it is. So your plantar fasciitis could be your glute. It could be a problem of your foot. It probably relates to your calf.
I mean, I have quite a sedentary, and I sit down a lot, and obviously, but that's quite a lot of people. So, if you're doing a job where you're not walking about or that kind of thing, then it is a bit of a time bomb. So
and I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a lot of information and there's continuous information that if we are sedentary, so there's information that I have seen that shows that the average person sits 16 hours a day. Then we get up and we do this really intense activity. There's a gap there for your body. So sitting is going to tighten up your hip flexors at the front of the body. It's going to tighten up your quads. It's going to make your glutes really tight. And then we go out and do a high intensity repetitive activity where we are putting a lot of load through that system that fundamentally is tight. So I often have people that really kind of argue with having to do, stretches or yin yoga or whatever it is. But that's why we're actually so susceptible to injury, because the human body was never, ever, ever, ever made to sit for 16 hours ever. Just think about all of the pieces of your body that are under compression. Some of them are under loaded compression from chairs. And then for 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day, we get up and we do one of the most intense biomechanic activities that we have.
So there's trauma there.
For sure. For sure. So, one of the things, I know that this advice is crazy and I had a desk job, but if you can even get up once an hour and just sit and stand, or there was a little bit of a mockery of this idea, but doing a heel, I think they called it a calf push-up, but basically where you lift your heel, it actually helps. So there's tiny things even at a desk job that you can do. Stand up, go get a drink of water. The more often you're able to actually break the cycle of sitting, the better off you are. But there's increasing research that shows that activity doesn't offset sitting. And so I am fully aware that part of desk jobs is focus and all of that stuff. And it's hard to break that focus, but it's going to be easier again to kind of do a few preventative pieces than it is to deal with physiotherapists and doctors and and even the mental health aspects of not being able to run. So I don't have like specific answers of how to do that exactly, because that's a really individual piece. But, you know, all that advice of just park a little bit further away and walk to your coworker's office and set an alarm and stand up once an hour, figure out one or two of those that actually is a bit effective for you and do them, because sitting is the worst enemy of runners by far.
Yeah. I think you've been brilliant today, and I know we've been really cut for time, and I could have talked for you for hours, and I'm sure maybe we could do this again because I apologize.
I would love to.
Yeah. So it was, thank you very much. I mean, have you got any links, social media that you can sort of promote at this time?
I do. So my office and my studio is in Canada, and I know that most of your audience is not, but my website is My Body Couture, which is 3 words, my, M-Y, body, B-O-D-Y, couture, C-O-U-T-U-R-E. So I do work both digitally as well as if you do have listeners in Canada, you can come to my office in Calgary. But I also really love connecting with people digitally. So anywhere that I'm active on social media, I'm not the best about like putting up posts, but I am the best about engaging with people. If they want to send me a DM and get a conversation started, ask me a question, tell me your running problem, tell me your injury.
I mean, I'll put links in the show notes and stuff. So,
So you're welcome to reach out to me and a conversation. And I really like connecting with people and hearing from them and hearing what's on their minds and what their problems are. All of that. Because I love being able to help with solutions, especially because a lot of things that in the running world, I've been there, I've done it. 2 decades of my living in that experience in my own body is as a runner / going on retirement from running / struggling in all the ways. I've done it all. So that's always near and dear to my heart, is kind of helping runners keep their shoes on their feet and not on the couch.
Yeah. Great. Anyway, I'll direct to you because,
thank you.
My daughter's come home from university, but no, this is great. So again, thanks very much. Maybe we can do this again. I apologize for the technical issues at the beginning, but anyway, I think so it will work out. I'll let you know when it'll be coming up in a few weeks. But great.
Perfect.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah. If you want to have like a follow-up episode, I would love to, because I love runners, and I love the fact that you have a podcast.
And I hope you enjoyed it. So great.
Yeah, I did. Thank you so much. Cheers.
And that's a wrap for another exhilarating episode of Brian's Run Pod. Thanks for tuning in, folks. As always, we've got your back with all things running. And next week, get ready for some awesome beginner hints and tips to kickstart your running journey. Oh, and before we sign off, exciting news. We're now available on YouTube. So whether you're pounding the pavement or chilling at home, you can catch us there too. Plus, we have a new feature on the podcast. You can now send me a message. Yep, you heard it right. Brian's Run Pod has become interactive with the audience. If you look at the top of the episode description, tap on send us a text message. You can tell me what you think of the episode, or alternatively, what you would like covered. If you're lucky, I might even read them out on the podcast. Hey, if you want to keep up with the latest updates, behind the scenes fun, and even some exclusive content, make sure to follow me on social media. You can find me on Twitter, or should I say X, at Brian's Run Pod. We've also just launched a shiny new Facebook page. Simply search for Brian's Run Pod and give us a like. And don't forget to hop on over to Instagram, where you can catch all our visual adventures at Brian's Run Pod. For those of you who love diving deep into the episodes, head over to our website, www.briansrunpod.co.uk, and there you'll find detailed show notes, handy chapter markers, make it too easy to navigate through our favourite discussions. Please leave a review, as it will always help others find this podcast. Music is by Happy Days by Stock Audio, not forgetting artwork by Alice Patterson. Till next week, thanks again for listening.